Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 158 of the J Situation Podcast. I'm recording this on April 11th, 2023. Man, I hope you're all doing well. Yeah, I hope you all had a great Easter weekend, spent time with your loved ones, had some cool chocolate rabbits. Chocolate rabbits, you start eating them with their ears. Because what type of monster starts with the feet, right? You got to go ears first, right? You weirdo. No. This podcast is going to be pretty long. Probably we're going to see how it plays out. I have a lot to cover today. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the Sig SLH silencer, for which we published data last week. We're going to talk gas dynamics in early time and late time. This is going to get very technical as we talk about the Q cherry bomb as well. And finally, I have some words of encouragement for all of you wonderful folks too. I wanted to touch on that, but we should get on with the show. Without further ado, I do want to let you know, though, it is going to get research heavy, and I will also be introducing another parameter and concept to you with regard to flow dynamics. So stick with me. I think it's going to be great. A lot of folks were waiting for this episode, so I hope I can do it justice. All right, I'll do my best for you. But first, a word about my gracious sponsors. The J Situation Podcast is proudly sponsored by Top Gun Range Houston. That's right. If you're in the Houston area, and even if you're just visiting, they're worth checking out. They have a 15-lane indoor shooting range, but really, they got the largest firearm rental fleet in the state of Texas, which is kind of wild, right? You can rent all the pistols, rifles, and shotguns and machine guns and shoot them. You can try out things before you buy, things like that. I would encourage you. Go check them out if you're in Houston. And in May, I will be there on a weekend there. I think it's a Saturday. I forget the exact date at this time, but I will be there in Houston to meet some folks. And you guys are welcome to stop by, meet me. We can talk about silencers, and it should be cool. Check them out at topgunrange.com and on Instagram at topgunrange. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by High-End Armament Technology. That's right, a dealer of exactly that. High-end arms and accessories. Yeah, they got significant longevity in the machine gun game, the NFA game, the procurement and operation of infrared sighting systems, night vision, thermal optics. Man, really, Robert and his crew are really great at finding stuff that can be super hard to find. Sometimes you need a place like that. And I find high-end arms to be just the ticket. Check them out at highendarms.com. on Instagram at High End Arms, and they even have a Facebook page, which you guessed it, is High End Arms. I hope they can help you if you need them to. Tell them Jay sent you. And the J Situation Podcast is also brought to you by Silencer Shop. That's right, you can use their kiosk, do your fingerprints and photos electronically, and in turn, you do cut down on errors. You simplify your silencer purchasing process, you get a money-back guarantee. It's pretty great. Good folks there at Silencer Shop. You got no transfer fees. You don't have any paperwork errors. It's just you and your silencer with no drama. It truly is silencer ownership simplified. Okay, and as always, if you go to pewscience.com/podcast to look at all the show notes, and you can do that in your favorite app too. I don't know if you use iTunes or Spotify or whatever. There should be coupon codes there with the episode. You can use a True Shot Gun Club out of Arizona. Magpul, use code PSTEN to get $10 off your order at magpul.com when you stock up on mags. And I'll work on getting some more coupon codes up for you guys if you want. Let me know, you guys, because I can put more on there. I just didn't want to. I don't know. I feel weird about doing it, so I'll put more on there if you want. I can get coupon codes for all kinds of companies. So if you guys want those, I can pass the savings on to you. If you want, let me know. Most importantly, this podcast is brought to you by PEW Science. That's right. For the past 3 years, pushing the silencer industry forward, one test at a time. Visit pewscience.com for the suppression rating, and it is the simplest and the most accurate hearing-safe rating for your suppressed small arms. It's based on true human inner ear response of the entire gunshot before combustion takes place, all the way until all the combustion is gone. We'll talk about that a little more today, technically, on the podcast. That's right. PEW Science is the home of the silencer sound standard. 7 sections. the most in-depth and accurate silencer data and analysis in the known universe. Check it out at pewscience.com. And as always, you can support the podcast. You can support PEW Science. You can support all the research I do, all the testing I do by joining with a membership at pewscience.com. There's also a new donate feature on the review page, on the podcast page. Hit the donate button if you like. That way you don't have to do the recurring stuff. Some people are more comfortable with a one-time thing. That's okay too. Every little bit helps, believe me. And you know what? If you are strapped for cash and you know what, Jay, I don't know about this. I'm like, that's no problem, dude. Spread the word. Let folks know what we're doing here. I think it's really helping. And the more people that know what we're doing, I think the more we can normalize the use of suppressed small arms. Give the podcast a good rating on iTunes or Spotify. That would really help out. Okay? Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. Okay, so the topic list for today is a little complex, but nonetheless, here it is. I have 3 prepared. The first, the Sound Signature Review 6107. It's the Sig Sauer SLH300TI with subsonic 300 blackout. This is the technical discussion of the article published last week, per typical. Okay. Always the podcast after an article publication, I go through the technical discussion. This week is no different. We will talk about that in topic 1. Topic 2, we'll talk about the Q cherry bomb. Okay. Love it or hate it, it's everywhere. Okay. And it's important to understand some things about it. We'll talk about its influence on weapon function as related to gas dynamics of the muzzle. Okay. In reference to the SCAR, it's not just a pretty face. Okay, the data utility of that weapon as a research apparatus is significant, and we've talked about the omega metric. Okay, now it's time to introduce and investigate the alpha parameter. I think you're ready. Okay, so I think you're ready. So we'll talk about that. Okay, and then topic 3, again, hope you had a great Easter weekend. I think field research is something that a lot of folks have been doing on their own. It's great to see. I really love to see people never stop learning, never stop experimenting. I love to see people passing the torch to those learning from them so they can teach others too. I think it's cool. I think the PEW Science effort is strong. Big shout out to contributing members who help out with this. This is awesome. Okay. All right. So I'm going to pause this really quick before we get into it. Okay, so we'll move into topic 1. If my pen would work. Topic 1 at a time of 7 minutes and 52 seconds. Okay, perfect. All right, guys, I'm gonna give this one the old college try. We have so much to talk about. I think it's gonna be neat. We'll see how to best approach it. I have multiple bottles of water here, so I have my supply drop, as it were. So we should be okay. Okay, so topic 1, the Sound Signature Review 6107, the Sig Sauer SLH300TI with subsonic 300 blackout. Technical discussion. And again, if you didn't listen to the introduction to the podcast, and for those of you who are new to the podcast, just listening, welcome. Thank you for listening. I do appreciate you. Per typical, I always give an in-depth technical discussion of a sound signature review the week after publication, or more succinctly, the podcast episode that is published after any publication on the website contains a technical discussion, okay? So this one was published last Thursday on the 6th of April. Is that Thursday? The 6th? Yeah. On the 6th of April. So we'll be talking about it today. Some folks learn better verbally. Some folks don't have time to read it. Some folks just like more information. Okay. So I was super pleased to be able to test this silencer and also to publish the results for the silencer. Shout out to the PEW Science member dealer who sent this to me for testing. You're the real MVP at this stage. Took me a while. He sent this to me a while back, but I had other things on my plate. But here we are. Appreciate you. It takes a village. You know, whether it's people sending me silencers or it's members funding the testing and the research and the article production or all the above. You know, it takes a village, and every little bit helps. And how freaking cool is it that we now have Sig SLH silencer data on the website for everyone to see? How freaking cool is that, dude? right? So, I mean, these silencers are winning military contracts, and you guys get to see test data that not even the U.S. government has. Isn't that cool? Yeah, I promise you right now that the signature data from the U.S. government is not as in-depth as what you see in that article. I promise you. And the people to thank are 100% PEW Science members. That's right. Salt of the earth, I say. Let's go. It's like, let's go. Like, super hyped? No, I'm hyped. I am. Did I take a little pre-workout before I started this? I have been known to do that, and I cannot confirm or deny. Yeah, I took a bump. So, look, before I even start talking about the data, have you guys seen the inside of one of these bad boys? Google it. You should Google it. Remember the old Sig silencers? Remember the old SRD series? Remember? I remember. You guys seen that South Park episode with the member berries? Yeah, if you haven't seen that, just please, it's hilarious. You need to. It cracks me up. I love that show. But yeah, remember the SRD, the straight poured cones, right? It reminds you of the Q rifle silencers, right? Basically the same overall technology, more or less. Really great to make subsonic 300 blackout super quiet in an economical and easy to manufacture way. Right? I mean, we're very familiar with that. Remember my talk about the full Nelson from Q? Yeah, good stuff. Good subsonic silencer. Really quiet, right? It's the quietest silencer published on pewscience.com right now for subsonic 300 blackout. Everyone knows that. They've seen the rankings table. So, turns out, though, Sig don't make the SRD no mo. Yeah, they don't make it anymore. That's right. They make the SLH and the SLX. Okay, do they tell you all about these silencers and market them heavily to consumers? I don't know. That was more of a rhetorical question because I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe I'm not in the target demographic. So I had to go to Sig's website to see what they were saying. And turns out the SLH line of silencers focuses on sound suppression, whereas the SLX line focuses on flash suppression. I guess for supersonic cartridges or something. And then they both have a higher flow rate if you look at the insides. And according to Sig, that can help with toxic gases and yada yada. And you get what we have from them now. You get these two lines of 3D printed silencers, the SLH line and the SLX line. And each of those lines has different lengths and designations and mounts and blah, blah. There's many things, many permutations of these Sig silencers, okay? Okay, now, the one I tested, now, to be clear, I have tested more, but the one you have seen from PEW Science so far that was published last week is the SLH300TI, okay? Now, out of the SLH line, it is the 300 blackout silencer with the taper direct thread mount. That's right. Just like a CGS Hyperion, just like a full Nelson from Q, just like a half Nelson from Q, same thing. It's got the taper mount there, direct thread, and you can use it on a 90-degree shoulder too if you like, just like all those. It's the Sig standard mount they came up with, and Q adopted it, and CGS adopted it, and some other people, probably. Okay, it's we've talked about that enough. When you look inside the silencer, you're going to go down memory lane a little bit with the SRD series. At first glance, you're like, whoa, homie, that's an SRD. But the trained eyes of you PEW Science savants will show you that the outer diameter of the silencer includes some features that you may not have seen before from a Sig silencer. Say it with me, friends. Annulus. That's right. The SLH, that word though. The SLH features an interesting design. Okay, interesting design whereby gas is vented around the baffles in cavities that wrap around the main baffle geometry. Okay, vents around the baffle. Okay, and it has these cavities that go around and around that main baffle geometry, and the baffles port to that cavity, and you have more exhaust venting at the distal end than just the primary bore, and they've shaped the main nozzle such that they try to control excess flash. You can tell what they're doing there. It looks like, to me at least, all in all, It's Sig's first major foray into 3D printed rifle silencer technology. They did the 3D printed pistol silencers that are modular. I actually have one of those in inventory. Saw those at an NRA show like 4 or 5 years ago. Those have been around. This is their first public foray into manufacturing a geometry with DMLS titanium and taking advantage of that technology with geometry that would be relatively challenging to manufacture with traditional methods, I think this is where Sig is like, okay, I guess we're going to use it. We did proof of concept, and I'm speculating, but it looks like they're like, we did proof of concept. Now we're going to use it to do some stuff we wouldn't normally be able to do. With subtractive manufacturing, let's do it 3D printed. It'd be better, easier to make, maybe more efficient. I don't know. That's what it looks like, right? So there are probably some questions here from folks, without even, when we talk about these Sig silencers, I honestly haven't seen a lot of information about them before I wrote this article. I looked too. I was just like, I wonder what people are saying about these. I didn't look too hard, but I looked enough and I was like, wasn't a lot out there that was like not just marketing, right? I was like, that's interesting. I didn't see a lot of test data or anything. So I anticipate and I saw that there's probably a lot of questions at this point. Like, for example, you might ask things like, does the silencer work well? What is the silencer for? What is it not for? Does it work well on a bolt gun? Does it work well on a semi-auto? Is it better than the SRD series? Is it worse than the SRD series? What does that even mean to be better or worse? And it's a lot of potential questions. And because this was released last week, this article, I've seen a lot of public discussion about the data, and that's really great. And that's one of the, I think longtime listeners of the podcast will recall that I do enjoy when I have a little bit of a gap between a technical discussion on the podcast and a publication, because I like to let the data percolate and let people look at it and think about it. I really enjoy that. It's fun to see people speak about it and take that in and make their determinations and their judgments about what they think it means to them. It's cool. So what we'll do is we'll take a trip down data road and get into the review, and we'll see what questions get answered that I just listed, and we'll go through this technical discussion, okay? And if I don't hit something you want to know, that's okay. You can ask me later, but I'm gonna try to do this justice. Okay, this is the first topic, and we got a lot to go. All right, so we'll do it right now. Article 107 in Section 6 of the Silencer Sound Standard. That's 6.107 in the standard at pewscience.com. What I have done is I've pulled up the member version of the article on my computer here in front of me. You can pull that up if you like to follow along with me, and there would be an opportunity to do that because I will give you call-outs as I describe things in the article. You can also pull up the free version at home if you like. I will not leave you behind. If you aren't a supporting member, that's okay. Believe me. Okay. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I don't alienate anyone. Please, if you follow along, you can follow along just as easily with the free version. If I deviate at all, I will let you know, as always. Okay. Bottom line up front, 44.8 composite suppression rating on the Q Mini Fix 8-inch bolt action with discrete ballistics 300 blackout subsonic ammunition. Okay, 32.3 at the muzzle, 44.4 at the ear. Interesting. Just looking at the bottom line here, for sound signature and hearing damage risk to the shooter, just looking at this, hearing damage risk to bystanders, you're looking at this hearing damage risk potential, which is what the suppression rating is. If you're new to this, if you're new to Pew Science, please go to Section 5 of the standard and read about what the suppression rating means. When you look at this, it's not terribly loud in that context, right? In the quantitative context of the suppression rating. It's not terribly loud. It's not terribly quiet, though, is it? It's not terribly quiet, though, is it? This silencer, from base of thread to end cap, is about 9 inches long, give or take. All right. So it's a full-size silencer. It's still a little shorter because, these direct thread silencers with taper, they go back over the barrel a little bit. So, full Nelson, half Nelson, Hyperion K, Sig SLH. These things are shorter than their length will let you know because they thread back over the barrel. a little bit with a tapered muzzle. Nonetheless, it's basically a 9-inch silencer. It's okay. It's full Nelson Hyperion Ultra 9 size. You understand what I'm saying to you. Okay, so don't split hairs here. My point is that you see the suppression rating, and this thing is full-size silencer, and you've probably looked at the rankings table in section 7 of the standard before you're listening to this, and if you haven't, I will tell you. For a full-size silencer with subsonic 300 blackout on a bolt gun, this silencer is not what we would call quiet, based on what we know in the state of practice to be true, relative to other silencers you've seen over the past 3 years of this public research effort, okay? We'll get into comparative analysis later in the topic, but I wanted to preface the discussion with that broad statement so there's no surprises, and we'll build to it with data. Okay, this is not subjective. This is an objective discussion about the measured data and the analysis that has been conducted, but I wanted to help you understand that in context, if you're new to this number, this is not quiet for a full-size silencer on 300 blackout subsonic bolt action. This is not typical. Okay? Now, what's a great thing to do first with any review after you look at the suppression rating at the top of the page? Well, for me, the way I get the most out of this is I think it's best to look at the fingerprint of the silencer in the combustion regime of interest, okay? And how would you do that? Well, you scroll down. Scroll all the way down to figure 1. Okay, figure 1. All right? In figure 1, you can see a 2.7 millisecond long portion of the sound signature measured 1 meter left of the end cap of the silencer in the free field. That's right. So all the shots are shown down in figure 2A in the entire time regime, but figure 1, what figure 1 in this article does is it zooms in really closely in early time so you can get a feel for what is happening right as the weapon is fired and the gas first starts to jet out of the silencer. This all happens extremely quickly, and examining that early time external signature can tell us a lot about silencer behavior. It doesn't tell you everything, but it tells you a lot, and you can't fake it. You can't fake it if you tried. And that's one of the reasons we call it the fingerprint. And boy, howdy, is the Sig silencer's fingerprint unique. Man, I tell you what, good golly, Miss Molly, look at this thing, man. I tell you what, look at this. Look at it. Look at figure 1. One of the great things, I want to talk about this real quick here. One of the great things I love about subsonic 300 blackout, especially using consistent ammo, shout out to David at Discreet Ballistics, powerful David. One thing I love in the early time perturbation is look at the early time perturbations of pressure. Check out the gas jetting in the silencer, transmitted through the silencer walls at the sound speed of titanium, then to air, then to the sensor. Watch as the precursor flow forms. It's pushed out of the silencer by the bullet. Right? It's pushed out of the silencer by the bullet due to the excellent communication of the molecules in front of the bullet due to the subsonic velocity facilitating that phenomenon. That we're going to need to talk about that, guys, in these flow physics you need to understand. The stuff in front of the bullet, the precursor flow, when that bullet's moving subsonically, you're piling those molecules up, baby. They can communicate. You're moving subsonically. That's different. Okay, you can see it happen. It's important. We've talked about it ad nauseum. All right? But then what happens? You get a wham. Look at the extra air in the silencer facilitating burning of that propellant during that first shot. That bullet left the silencer. There's propellant being expelled from the uncorking. Hot gases, continuous burning, all that air to support that extra combustion. It jets so big, it gets all the way up to 147.5 decibels right there. I label it in the figure, and then puff, it starts trucking along at low amplitude. What happened? You got that huge, you got the first FRP jet, huge primary jet in first round pop, and I am now lower. It's wild, man. It's wild. What happened? Like, where did everything go? Did we shoot our wad early? Did we blow our wad, so to speak? Does that happen to everyone, or are they just trying to make you feel better? You feel me? No, it doesn't happen to everyone. This is not normal. It's not, though. The Sig Sauer jetted fast. It did. SpaghettiOs. You might be thinking there. Yeah, what does that mean? What does that mean? We'll get into it a little bit in topic 2. Well, actually, we're going to get into it a lot of bit. In topic 2, when I talk about the Q cherry bomb and the SCAR, but we're not going to get ahead of ourselves now. But what does the expedient jetting with fast decay in pressure space mean? What does it mean? It means gas is coming out of the silencer fast. That is what it means. Okay, that's literally what it's showing. Forget about the ammo. Forget about this particular silencer. What does it mean usually when gas comes out of a silencer relatively quickly? It means the silencer is usually louder and usually has an overall gas flow rate that's relatively high. An overall gas flow rate that's relatively high. And we usually call that low back pressure. Usually. Now, is it more complicated than that? It is. It is more complicated than that. But right now, in this topic, for this moment in time on the podcast, we're going to call it that. We're going to call this indicative of low back pressure behavior with back pressure defined as high overall gas flow rate through a silencer. Is that fair? Can you just be patient? We're going to, just for these few minutes before we get to the other stuff, or for this hour or so before we get to this other stuff, we'll table that for now. Okay, we're going to call this low back pressure behavior indicative of high flow rate. Okay, back pressure defined as high overall gas flow rate through a silencer. Fair? Okay, and I can hear the weapon designers and the testing guys screaming. I know. I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get to you. I promise, okay? We're talking to everyone right now. All right, 1 second. Let me drink of water. Okay. Okay, so there's more now. But wait, there's more. That's right. There's a lot more. Check out figure 2. Scroll all the way down. Some more. I talk about things. You can read it. It's important. It's an article. You should probably read it if you want, if you're interested at all. If you're not, that's okay too. If you check out figure 2. You can see the full histories there. Stretched them out longer than I needed to. Yeah, I like to go long sometimes for you. I wanted to make a point. I mean, this is not like just this article. I kind of do it all the time. I wanted to make a point here. It's not just vanity. It is actually technically purposeful. I want to prove to you that this is actually, like, this is one indicator. This is actually real mill standard testing. All right, like, I don't care if you have a video of it. Does the person in the video like go get like a measuring tape and like show you all the distances to everything and like pan around everywhere? No, but what do I do? I'll show you the whole time history. Can't fake that. That's right. Look how far I stretched it out. I stretched the time history, like the decay happened, and then it was like nothing was happening for a really long time. Yeah, stretched out the whole way. What happens if you were testing that, like, I don't know, somewhere else, like not in accordance with the mill standard, like, I don't know, in a building or something, or like in your garage or whatever? You wouldn't see what you see there. Okay, that's right. You can debate it, but it is the facts of reality. So in figure 2B, you can see shot 2. I overlaid shot 1 and shot 2 together. In figure 2B, you can see shot 2 behaving exactly like shot 1, more or less, except what do we see? The combustion is a little more uniform and normal in shot 2. Why? Well, in shot 1 we got to consume that oxygen that was in the air, that was in the silencer. So you're not burning super crazy happy fun time like you were during FRP. And then each subsequent shot sort of behaves like shot 2. Sort of behaves like shot 2. If you look at all 5 shots in the impulse space in figure 3 there, below that, you can see that. The interesting thing, this is really, what a unique signature if you're looking at this. Isn't that wild looking? You never seen anything like that, have you, on 300 Blackout? The interesting thing about the impulse fingerprint not pressure, but I mean, pressure is interesting too, but the impulse fingerprint too. The interesting thing about the impulse fingerprint of the Sig silencer is that really quick rarefaction and then the gradual blowdown of the rest of the gas. And that blowdown, I think if you were to look on the inside, at the inside of the silencer, it would make a lot of sense to you. If you've been following along, with this effort, and the other interesting thing about the silencer, and it's something I found to be a little odd, actually, is the progressive delay of the impulse accumulation as the shot string continues. So at first I was like, oh man, I guess the data acquisition triggering got off there. I'll have to correct that. And I was like, and then I was like, no. You can see the initial precursor flow is coincident. It's coincident in pressure space. So when you look at the bottom line, right, the pressure, you're like, okay, I'm looking at that. And then you move to impulse space and you see, the precursor impulse building it. And what time is that at? 29.6 milliseconds roughly. Yeah, that's coincident. It's coincident in impulse space from shot to shot when it starts to ramp. So, okay, so that means that the shots are definitely occurring at the same time. Like the bullet is physically moving at the same time. Like that's correct. Okay, which is good. So why the heck is there a continuously delayed jet progression as it builds, as the shot string continues? And then what does it do? It resets after shot 3. Isn't that weird? It takes like 3 shots. It's like, boom, FRP. Then shot 2 takes a little longer. Shot 3 takes a little longer, then resets. And the clock starts again with shot 4. And it's like, what? That was so interesting to me. So wild. And if if you're wondering what I'm saying and you're looking at the article, look at figure 3B. Okay, you see how I labeled it? The continuously delayed jet progression. I labeled it. You can see how the curve is being shifted in its impulse accumulation. I think what might be happening is a weird temperature gradient influencing the flow through the annular porting as you heat it up. I don't know. You can only postulate as to why without some more measurements, but I did find it interesting, and it was noticeable enough to report it. I thought that was just important to talk to you about, because that I don't know that you've ever seen anything like that, and I assumed I would get a question about it. No one questioned it at all, and I was like, okay, no one questioned this. I hope they looked at it, because that's really odd. Because if you look at the decay's lying on right on top of each other, so you're like, okay, I hope you're seeing this, because this is like really, really strange. But I guess as we continue to analyze these so-called flow-through silencers, and to be clear, that term flow-through, I don't know that you can call this a flow-through silencer. Not only for trademark infringement, because I'm pretty sure that's an OSS term or a Huxworks term, but it's not the same. and we'll talk about why that's a little different in topic 2. 1 second. Boy, I'm excited to talk to you about stuff in topic 2. Oh, there's so much. Now, regardless about that, all in all, even if you don't want to call it a flow-through silencer, it's dumping gas quickly. That we can see in the data. That is immediately apparent. You don't even have to look at the amplitudes. All you have to look is at the shape of the curves, right? So we know from the research that it's dumping gas quickly. Okay, it really is. Now, whether or not the entire thing is being utilized, that's an interesting question. I feel like it might be, which is interesting though. I do feel like it might be, based on what I'm seeing here. I have my opinions about some of the design, and maybe I'm going to share those later, but yeah, we'll keep looking at the data. We don't have to get subjective. The FRP from this thing, the first round pop from this thing isn't bad. But I mean, it's also like the whole thing's not super quiet. So when I say the first round pop isn't bad, what I'm saying is that the first shot is not super loud relative to all the other shots. And one thing that helps you there is all the shots being a little loud. For the size of the silencer, okay? Not a knock on Sig, it's just the data, All right. I make a note that this is subsonic 300 blackout, guys. So this might be important to you. It might be important to you that this is not as quiet as some other silencers. And some people, they're like, oh, but Sig wanted to do this. They did it on purpose. It's like, I don't care at all what the intent was when I'm trying to tell you this is how it performed relative to other silencers that are on the platform, and this is a 9-inch long silencer. You need to know how it sounds if you buy it or you use it, because you're not going to be like shocked at how quiet it is if you've shot other silencers with the same, like, I don't know how you could think that this is super quiet for its size. And so you need to understand that, because it's objectively not. And you don't have to use the word quiet if you want. Don't even use the word quiet aloud. Use the term hearing damage risk potential. Call it whatever you want. All right? Okay. All right, I'm going to scroll down here. Do I need to talk about... Okay, I'm going to skip the member stuff. Members, if you're a PEW Science member, I would encourage you to check out that stuff. I talk about postulated function on semi-autos, things like that. Guys, the high flow rate can help a little on a semi-auto, or help a lot, for that matter, on the semi-auto. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit on topic 2. With regard to signature and gas in the face, sure, dude. That can help you. I want to focus on this test report for the moment. Members, check out my notes in the member section of the review with the waveforms measured at my ear as I shot the system. Please, I implore you. You will notice some of the same effects as well. As far as decay, it's important. Just alone, if you're new to PEW Science and you're still having trouble, like, seeing, hey, is this J guy on the up and up? Just look at the data, dude. Like, if you have questions, let me know. I'm pretty transparent. This is like, all the raw data is right there. So if you see anything in it you have a question about, let me know. Okay. Now, what we should do, big picture for everybody here. How are we doing on time? We're about half an hour in. Okay. About half an hour in. We can do this. Okay. Let's look at the overall comparison of signature severity now. What we'll do is we'll look at the overall comparison of signature severity of this silencer on this host with 300 blackout subs to the shooter and bystanders. And we'll look at that it's in the second section of the review, and it's in figure number 6. Okay, now, that's the big bar chart, the red and the blue one. I don't know if you're colorblind or not. It's the crosshatch and the diagonal hatch. Okay, the muzzle, the bystander's diagonal hatch, the ear suppression rating for the shooter is blue, that's crosshatched. Okay, so make sure you can read that. The bar chart is in no particular order. It's the same bar chart I used in the most recent 300 blackout review, which I think was the full Nelson. The only thing I did in this one, I added this Sig silencer. I put it next to the other Sig silencer, and that happens to also be near the Hyperion. And there's some big contrast there. When you look at it, it kind of jumps out at you. Is that purposeful by me? Well, yes and no. Yes, in a sense, I wanted you to see it next to the SRD from Sig, because you're directly comparing 2 generations of silencer from the same company, which I think is highly pertinent. I don't think anyone can argue that. But it was also not purposeful in a sense that it really doesn't matter how you look at this, because you can use the rankings table too. And I can tell you, and folks of you, because there are a lot of conspiracy theories about PEW Science, and some people are like, well, he's gonna make it look bad, and everyone's gonna look at that chart. It's like, dude, if you look at the analytics, people are using that rankings table significantly, so they can use the rankings table just fine, which is all black and white and sortable in any way someone wants to sort it. You can sort to your heart's content, and I tell you what, the amount of people looking at that page is a lot, all over the entire globe. It's actually scary to me. It doesn't keep me up at night, but it certainly has made my dreams interesting. Whatever. Now, look at this chart, though. It's cool. At the muzzle, what's the closest thing to the Sig silencer on this gun? Let's play hunt the perimeter. Say 32.3 for the Sig silencer. Yeah. What is the closest thing, dude? What's the closest thing? It's the Surefire SOCOM 762 RC2. It's a 762 RC2 from Surefire. That's the closest thing holistically to bystanders on this gun. How good is the 762 RC2 with subsonic ammo? Not great, fam. Spoiler alert. Why? Why is the 762 RC2 not super quiet with subsonic ammo? Why? We've talked about that a lot. Relatively high gas flow rate. Right? That's right. RC2 isn't intended for subsonic 300 blackout use, is it? No, it's not intended for it. Surefire certainly doesn't intend it for that. That's a supersonic cartridge silencer, my friends. That's what that's for. We talked about this before we got the t-shirt, dude. Look at the OSS on the plot. The HXQD 762's there. It's even louder. Same story, dude. And even more aggressively so in the case of the OSS. The HXQD series is all about not restricting flow at all, son. That's right. To the extent possible, it wants gas to dump quickly. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Oh, this time I can pause it because I have enough warning. Hold on. Oh my gosh, dude, that was crazy. Like last time, I don't know if you guys remember, last episode, I sneezed. I couldn't hit the button in time. It was violent. Not good. But I held it in too. Almost popped like a gasket or something. To the extent possible, the HXQD series from OSS or Hux Works lets gas dump quickly. Okay. SOCOM 762 RC2, it can dump gas pretty fast. Not as fast as its own OSS, not as fast as the SIG, but it can dump gas faster than you would think with all the porting inside. So what do you do if you're a Surefire guy and you want to suppress 300 blackout subsonic like a G? Like what happens if you're like, I want the sauce. I want it to sound pleasing and quiet when I pop in this dude in the head. What do I use from Surefire? Well, you do it with 300 SPS. That's right. That silencer sounds great with 300 blackout. That's what Surefire did with it. So go shoot one. If you're into Surefire and you like 300 blackout, I literally, that. Don't take my word for it. The data's on the website and Surefire made it for that. It's like literally in the name. There's a 300 in there. So look at the silencers on the chart. Okay. We just talked about what was comparable to this SLH silencer at the muzzle, and it was the RC2. You're like, okay, interesting. Well, let's talk about what happens to the shooter. You remember, this is a bolt gun, so this is simple, relatively simple. Not super simple, but relatively simple. At the ear, the shooter's ear, what is the Sig silencer closest to? Bruh, it's on par with the energetic armament Vox S, dude. Okay, you see the theme here? Is the Vox Hollywood quiet? No, obviously it's not Hollywood quiet, considering the full Nelson and the Hyperion exist. So in the current universe we live in, the Vox S could never be considered Hollywood quiet by anybody who shoots silencers. We know that, I mean, look at the list. Look how many silencers. I mean, look at the Silencer Central. Banish 30 gold on 300 blackout. That's quieter than the Vox S. So, as a peg point to the shooter, the Vox is like the Sig silencer. Not Hollywood quiet. Okay, so you see how this Sig silencer stacks up now. Okay, in pure suppression. Now, it's only now, this is a little bit of a nuance. It's only getting similar suppression to the Vox at the ear because it's further away. And it has a super high flow rate, and the flow field is shaped a certain way, dude, because the Vox is actually quieter at the muzzle in this thing. The Vox is just so short that the pressure pulse is closer to, and also the flow rate's different. So anyway, sound feels different, but the Sig silencer, actually, the shooter gets helped by the fact that the Sig silencer is 9 inches long. It puts that origin further away, which is all you can get with this, homie, if you're looking for quiet. Okay, that's reality, that's physics. Okay, now, before I go on and talk about something other than pure suppression performance, which we've talked about so far, you need to know, guys, I can't say this enough, and I know this might be redundant for some of you. You need to know, if you shoot this silencer on a 300 blackout bolt gun like this with quiet ammo, and you think it's going to sound like a full Nelson, you have a gigantic surprise coming your way. Okay? Because it's about as similar in sound to a full Nelson or an SR or the old SRD silencer with 300 blackout as a Prius is to a blown 454 Chevy, dude. Like, you're in high flow rate town USA, population U, and let me tell you something. Sig did not care about this sounding super quiet. How do I know that? How can I say those words? I had a bunch of Sig employees reach out to me, and by the way, Sig had no idea I was publishing this. They had a lot of Sig employees reach out to me after I published this. And you know what they told me? The first thing they told me was my data was 100% correct, so that's one thing. The other thing, no, I can't tell you what they said. They asked me not to. I can say this. Is everyone at Sig happy with the silencer? No. I'm not talking about Sig being happy with me or happy with PEW Science. No. I'm saying, is everyone at Sig happy with the SLH line of silencers? No. Okay, they aren't. Is the PEW Science data correct? Yes. Is the relative performance between the other silencers shown correct? Yes. The relative performance between the SLH and the SRD silencer correct? Yes. So many yeses. Okay, I got tired of hearing the yes. I had a lot of conversations about this with a lot of people, dude. It's right, and I'm dude. Look, I know this sounds crazy to you, but I mean, holistically, is it that quite crazy when you look at look at the inside of the silencer? Okay, this isn't magic time. And oh god, topic 2, we'll talk about why it's not magic. Now, elephant in the room. Let me get some more water here. 1 second. Elephant in the room. Well, there are actually 2 elephants. These things keep multiplying. No, they're Siamese elephants. They're born joined at the hip. Look, don't ask me how the mama elephant gave birth. All right, people say she was roomy. You know, like Hannibal Lecter said in Silence of the Lambs. Remember, he's like, was she a big girl? Roomy. Remember? I like that movie. Elephant A. Does the Sig have low back pressure? Elephant B. If it does it help weapon function, and will it make owners of the MCX super happy? Okay, I think those are the 2 elephants that I've noticed. Answer to the first elephant. Yes, it does. I tested this myself on the SCAR weapon system. If you would like to define low back pressure as affecting weapon function, I'll tell you about that in the next topic. Also, look at the data I just described, and you can see significant evidence of high overall flow rate. We'll talk about why we should be careful with that in the next topic. But yes, so elephant A, we seem to say for right now, yes. Elephant B, elephant numero dos of elefante. Does the Sig SLH silencer help with weapon function? Yes. If you own a 300 blackout MCX, is that going to be awesome for you, this combination? I don't know. I haven't tested that. I will, though. People tell me yes. Some people tell me no. It's not that I don't believe either of you. It's just that I believe that your experiences are what you say you're experiencing. Thing is about that, these anecdotal reports, is that everyone has a different subjective description of things. Some people say things are Hollywood quiet when they're not. And it might not be their fault. They might never heard anything else. That's not a knock on anyone. I tell you what, I got to trust the data, man. Tell you what. And, I like to test things. I like to gather the data. I like to analyze it. That's PEW Science. Until I can do that with the MCX there, I can't tell you. I can't tell you what this thing does on the MCX. I will tell you eventually. But look, man, I'm trying to give you all this information. I just don't have don't have that yet. All right. So all in all, I'm not. It's not that I'm cutting this short, but I am being efficient. All in all, this is an interesting silencer. It is light. It is simple. It is direct taper thread, which, oh God, more and more I'm loving direct thread. It's like, believe me, dude. Direct thread in for certain reasons, just, you can get this with a clutch lock from Sig, that new mount system they have. If you're into that, you can get that version of the silencer. You can be a cloner, one of them clone people, like not clone like, oh, it's like a Invasion of the Body Snatchers. No, not like that, but like people that obsessively copy military weapons for the nostalgia or LARPing, as they say, the live action role playing. I don't know. I'm not a cloner. I'm not saying cloners are bad, but the cloners might want clutch lock, because I don't know how many like ninjas are using the direct thread unless they put it on like a MCX. I'm not up to speed with what the ninjas use. You're gonna have to help me out with that. Like I'm sort of a boomer, and I don't. I'm not really a boomer. I'm not that old, but I'm old enough. I'm just not hip to the clone scene, if as it were. If you want to be a clone dude, because the military uses this thing, and it's like louder than it on the 300 blackout subs than any other Sig rifle silencer ever, you knock yourself out, homie. Get the clutch lock, whatever, dude. I don't know. That's the SLH line. I'm not going to say this is a bad silencer. I don't really say silencers are good or bad. I'm just saying, like, it performs how it performs. And you know what? On certain systems, it might shine, dude. Honestly, it might shine. We'll have to see, though. I can't tell you. I touched on the bolt gun to standard, and we look at figure 6 in the review. You see how it stacks up. It's doing something. Look at the waveform shapes. We'll talk about that. Let's talk about what you can really do with a silencer, how it behaves. Okay, let's move into the meat of this, the secondary meat. We just had some meat. We're going to have more meat in topic 2 at a time of 51 minutes and 39 seconds. All right, let me get some water here. This is going faster than I thought it would. I did prepare some notes, though, so able to keep myself a little bit on track. Be careful, it could go off the rails at any time. It's been a good week. Topic 2, the Q cherry bomb. Love it or hate it. Doesn't matter if you like it or not, or if you like Q or not. Okay, I saw some comments on social media. People really love to drag me into drama, don't they? I seem to gather it wherever I go, but I don't engage, and it's been good not to engage with the tomfoolery. Love it or hate it, this Q cherry bomb, it's everywhere. Whether it's the cherry bomb or the people that have copied it, or copied the thread pattern, this type of mount is significantly proliferated throughout the market, and so it's important to talk about it. We'll talk about the specifics. I want to talk about the influence of the cherry bomb on weapon function, as related to gas dynamics at the muzzle of the weapon. Specifically, I really want to start to explain something to you that I thought people knew, but maybe they didn't, and that's okay. I wanted to tell you that the scar isn't just a pretty face. People see me post the scar a lot. They get, people assign all this like emotional attachment to weapons and call people fanboys of things. And you guys, goodness gracious, I never knew that people would be so strange about it, but the data utility of the scar and what we're learning so far, just by some quick field tests with this to validate some stuff, it's like, why hasn't anyone done this before? And like the fact that no one's done it and I'm the one doing it, it's like, are you serious? So the data utility is so high. We'll talk about that. Also, we're going to talk about the omega metric again, because I think I need to be a little more direct with you about this. And I would like to then, and I didn't want to do it yet. I didn't want to do it until we had more testing in different ways, but I'm going to do it anyway, because why not? These are open source parameters. Let's talk about it. I'm going to introduce the alpha parameter. Okay? You don't know what that is yet, but you will, because I'm going to talk about it right now. And I titled this the Q cherry bomb up front here. I titled it that because it's a major part of this, whether you like it or not, just what it represents mechanically. This past Easter Sunday, ground was wet. I don't know. I did some work. I was doing some stuff outside, and in the evening, I was like, you know what? Before it gets dark, thank goodness for daylight savings time. I was like, oh, we have some more daylight. I'm gonna go out this evening. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna shoot some other silencers on the Scar. Differently from the topic I told you last week. I'm going to shoot some other silencers on the Scar. I'm going to shoot these same silencers on the 14.5-inch 5.56 mid-length gas test host, the apparatus, to get a feel for the system, make sure I understood any potential issues with it before I test with it, just make sure that thing worked, hadn't shot it. Basically, proof of concept apparatus trials was part of that too. It was a quick thing. It was a quick thing turned into hours because of what I was doing. As always, you want it to be a quick thing, then you're gone for hours. And also, it was my second outing with the K&S discarder. By the way, is that K&S discarder perfect? No, but it's got to be, like, for me, dude, it's got to be the best gas adjustment knob so far on the Scar for me, dude. Other than the stock knob. I love the stock knob, but, like, if you want to vent more gas, if you're changing silencers a lot, I would say K&S is pretty great. If you have one silencer, changing gas jets and having venting with the vent setting on the normal Scar knob, that's pretty awesome too. I wouldn't get too crazy, but the K&S will certainly let you vent a lot, so that's kind of cool. Could be. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to spare you a long technical discussion with the Scar update. We're not doing that today. I'm not even labeling. I don't think I'm going to label this a PEW Science Scar project update. I would see the previous episode for that. What you need to know for this complex discussion, what you need to know is that the Scar is sensitive to what happens at the muzzle of the gun. Okay, I just said something really, really complicated, so I'm going to repeat it. The Scar is sensitive to what happens at the muzzle of the gun. Okay? And I'm gonna explain something. I'm gonna start to explain something. Almost all gas-operated weapons are sensitive to two time regimes of gas dynamics. The first regime is early time flow field right outside the muzzle after uncorking. Uncorking is when the bullet leaves, okay? We call this early time because although a lot is happening in the system before uncorking, and the silencer is actually influencing what happens with precursor flow, the significant primary event of muzzle uncorking, that bullet leaving the muzzle, that is a big deal. Some purists will argue an earlier event should be talked about right now. Okay? And I do not disagree with those technicians and engineers and scientists. I do not disagree with them. But for the purpose of this discussion, we will call the first regime the early time flow out of the muzzle. And we will characterize the supersonic gas flow as producing immediate jet expansion to the extent possible due to geometric limitations. And will include the ensuing shock front propagation, will include the subsequent reflections. Okay? We'll include all of this that's dictated by the resulting flow field and the geometry in the immediate field vicinity. Okay? Weapons are sensitive to what happens in this regime. Okay? So table that. That's your first regime. You feel me? Okay? Okay. That's the first part. The second regime is the late time flow field outside the silencer. Okay? As measured 1 meter left of the end cap per the mil standard. Okay? And in modern suppressed small arms state of practice, the silencer sound standard at full raw data resolution by PEW Science, published at pewscience.com, is what that is. Okay? The second regime in later time is significantly characterized and is defined as the flow field exterior to the silencer's exit aperture, resulting from a given holistic flow rate through the system. Okay? I'm describing this slowly. parameters defining characteristics of this flow field. Let's think about these parameters. What are the parameters that define the characteristics of this exterior flow field? They include, what do they include, guys? You already know this. They include the pressure functions presented on the website. They include the impulse histories. They include the impulse accumulation behavior, or call it another thing if you want, the momentum transfer potential rates. Okay, what's another word for that? What do they include? The research parameter omega, or in short, the omega metric. Okay, so this second time regime, what does it do? Well, weapons or the operator, or both, can also be sensitive to what happens in this time regime, in the second regime. Okay, so we're splitting it up now. Okay, we're going to talk about two regimes. Okay, so I'm going to recap that. I realized I said a lot of stuff, and I said it in a way that some of you, I'm losing you. I'm going to recap what I said. I'm going to say it more succinctly. There are two time regimes of interest with regard to flow field that can influence, or let me say it a different way, that can or may influence weapon function and operator experience. Early time right at the muzzle and late time outside the silencer. You feel me? Both matter, and both are related. Though the early time behavior is something we can't measure externally because it occurs prior to anything leaving the system, right? That's the reality. We know that. We know you can't determine what happens in the beginning with the external measurement because other than the perturbations we can see in early time through the walls of the silencer that are transmitting sound through the wall, right? You have to instrument the inside, right? Let me get a drink of water 1 second. You can only see effects that echo from the early time flow to the late time. Okay, you can see knock-on effects, but you can't see them. A better way to say this is you can't isolate them from external measurement. Understand? I think this is a problem a lot of people had with the omega metric because they think we were trying to do that, and it's like, no, we were just trying to maximize data utility. Okay, so I'm going to explain that again now. So for a while, and I actually talked about this last episode, but this is maybe a better discussion for you to hear it again in a different way and add some other talk to it. So for a while, and I explained this in the last episode, I've actually explained this ad nauseum, PEW Science has been trying to get away with using the second, later time regime to the greatest extent possible to maximize the degree of data utility in the effort. Okay? To that end, I created the omega metric. We mapped it to weapon function. It worked a lot of the time. It helps us understand when we were getting gassed out by a silencer on a gun in late time. It's pretty useful. It's useful to the extent it works to characterize things that happen with a weapon holistically due to overall flow rate through a silencer system, because that's what it measures. It's pretty awesome, if I do say so myself. That late time flow. Now, we all knew, well, most of us knew, we all knew the early time regime is real. It's like you can't just put your head in the sand and ignore it. We all knew it mattered. We all knew the time was going to come where we had to start talking about it more. I hinted about this, but with high-speed camera and stuff and instrumenting. Even in the article, I hinted, but get busy, and we had to start talking about it. Sometimes. This is one of the reasons I'm pushing this. Sometimes it doesn't matter if you're getting gassed out or not. Sometimes you don't necessarily care about getting gassed, do you? Sometimes that's not really what you care about. No, sometimes you care about whether or not you're going to break your gun. And that's a really it's a big issue, I think. A lot of people seem to talk about gas in the face. Not a lot of people talking about breaking their guns. It's weird. Both are important, I think. I don't know. I guess cancer sucks too, but I don't guess it sucks. It does suck, but still, nonetheless, sometimes you care about one or either of those things. And I'm here to tell you, friends, when you come into Scar Town, where everyone and their mom wants to break your gun, you got a target on your back there. The early time regime of flow field right after uncorking is your playground. It's your playground in Scar Town. And I encourage you to sit on that merry-go-round right now, dude. Come with me to the swing set. Bring your crayons. All right, I'm gonna tell you a story. I'm gonna try to do this in a way that's relatable to people. Don't make fun of me. I'm gonna try to keep it relatable. Because up front in the beginning of this event, starting early time, there's a developing shock front out of the muzzle as the bullet leaves, and it's good, and we know this. The shock, it's free to expand. It sheds the boundary layer of its confines. It wants to be free. It wants free expansion. It wants to spread its wings like every new shock wave is to do as it leaves the nest. And then wham! What is that? It's impingement. It encounters impingement upon a geometry that it was not told existed. Why? Well, unfortunately, communication through the medium was not possible. No, it was not possible. How could it know? Because as a shockwave, the young shockwave, it had learned to deal with this. It was doomed to wander the flow regime alone, forever lonely. Nothing happening upstream was to give it any communication. Nothing was to give it the time of day. For it operates in a regime transcending the communication speed of the molecules in the medium. It is at its alpha and its omega too fast. It's too furious. It has no family, though. Okay, the shockwave's alone. It gets incredibly surprised as it impacts this muzzle device. Sure, it would expect adjacent wall reflections, Maybe it heard rumors of that happening because there's other things, but the angle of incidence in this scenario, when you propagate a shock and it hits a surface like this, the angle of incidence is so much more severe than the shock wave anticipates if it's sentient. It hadn't heard about it. It said, what is this? Is that a wall right in front of my face? Why is there so much coalescence? Why is the reflection factor so high? Why is the amplitude so high? Retreat. All it knows to do is retreat with its friends now, and it rapidly turns around. It flees from the obstruction. It comes back down from whence it came, traveling through the pre-compressed medium. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the speed is now deafening. It's going even faster. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. Okay, it's like the Flash in the comic books. It rapidly transitions to the next impact point. It's going the other way now. What's it going to hit? It's going to hit the bolt in this scar. It's like, I'm back, bitch. No, I'm back. It's frothing at the mouth like a crazed lunatic. It's like, I'm back. It's like here's like, the Shiny when Jack Nicholson busts through the door with the axe. I'm back. I'm right there. I originated the bolt. I'm right back. I'm back. It's not meaning to be scary, but that shockwave now realizes he's not welcome. That scar bolt carrier says, "Hey, buddy, you're back way too early, dude. You're here. You're home way too soon. Why are you back so early?" And as soon as he asks that question, that shockwave hits that bolt. That bolt is thrust rearward with a force he couldn't possibly imagine. And just when that bolt thinks it's over, it slams into the carrier. And that bolt carrier, the scar, it's still moving rearward. It's not even reached the end of its travel yet, dude. And that bolt hits it faster than it's moving rearward, because the relative differential of motion is that great. And that's what the shock does. It slams that bolt back into the bolt carrier, and that cam pin impacts the cam path. That's what I just described, the early time shock propagation rearward in a SCAR weapon system after the bullet enters the silencer, but before the carrier has even reached the end of the travel. This is one of the mechanisms by which you can break a SCAR. It has nothing to do with your stock. It has nothing to do with your screws. It has nothing to do with it. It could be from a cherry bomb. It could be from another break. For all I know. I don't know. But what I'm here to tell you is it's early time stuff, dude. Early time stuff. Now, is early time stuff limited to the SCAR? Well, no. Does late time stuff still matter for the SCAR? It certainly does. The late time matters too. Still. That's right. Does all this stuff matter for weapons? It can. Is the SCAR particularly sensitive? Oh, yeah. It's one of the reasons I picked it as a research apparatus. He likes it because it's expensive. Yeah. No. Okay. My SCAR, the PEW Science SCAR, is short dwell time gang. Dwell time is defined as the time it takes for the bullet to pass the gas port and uncork, not chamber dwell. Don't get them confused. Okay. My SCAR is short dwell gang, a 13-inch barrel. Imagine what happens on a 16-inch barrel with the same gas port location. You get more dwell time, don't you? Does the early time shock differ? Would the early time shock, that young shock that we just explored his journey through the barrel, does the early time shock differ on the 16-inch barrel? It can. Does your late time stuff matter more? Possibly so, due to extending the length of the time the gas port's under pressure, which imparts more impulse to the piston. So there's that, and you have a longer dwell time. Yeah. So there's a balance, and I've actually prepared a graphic for you. We'll talk about it in a second. I'm going to post it with this. I made a doodle on my paper, and I took a picture for you. Real quick, I read something on social media this week. Someone sent me a post, and so I read the comments on it, and I was like, oh my God. I read something on social media this week where someone was talking about silencer doing something and another silencer doing something, and the person didn't even mention shock propagation. They're talking about this silencer does this, and bro, let me tell you, you got to be careful what you read on the internet. I tell you what, you're not even talking about shock propagation, and you're only looking at late time. How are you going to talk about all that? If you're, and we're going to get to this, if your blast baffle and overall silencer geometry is the same as it was at Silencer Co., but you put one of those like fake mustaches on it for disguise, like, look at me, like it's like a mustache and glasses, like it's a disguise, like if you're a rugged surge or a dead air Sandman, it's basically like it all came from SWR, right? It's like if you're like Silencer Co., rugged or dead air, and you originated because SWR existed, and those initial silencers were all just like running through a Xerox machine up front in the blast chamber, basically for shock propagation. Look, if you're offended by what I'm saying, I'm sorry that you think it's a different shock propagation backward, but it's really similar, dude. Like we have the research to show this outside of silencer industry. This is completely outside of silencer industry. Okay, this is like shock physics based on like shock tube research. this instrumented. Your blast chamber looked the same for all intents and purposes. Is your angle of incidence a little different because you're at baffle angle? Fine. What I'm saying is, if you're an Omega, if you're a Surge, if you're a Sandman, whatever, and you vary the late time gas dynamics, meaning you vary the Omega metric as shown in the externally measured data by restricting overall gas flow rate, by adding baffles to your silencer or putting a bigger hole in the middle or whatever, or putting less baffles in your silencer, but you have that initial part of your silencer the same, and you just look at relative behavior of how the weapon is operating, what do you get? You get omega metric correlation with every single thing the weapon does, because you're only looking at late time. And why does it work? It works because you didn't have to look at early time, because all the early time was so similar and it didn't matter. It was in the noise. Remember how the Omega metric was developed. It was developed as a quick, this is working, let's use it because everything's so similar, we can scale it. It's so simple. Okay? And I didn't want to have to go this complicated yet because it involves more measuring. I could just use my existing data to measure. And now we have to, you got to do more testing. Oh, man. Because in a perfect world, not only would you measure sound, you'd get flash at the same time, and you'd also get all the kinematics, right? But no one's going to do a test like that because every test would take forever because you have to get everything set up correctly, and it's a pain in the butt. And to do it right, I know you can do it because I've done tests like that in other fields, but believe me, dude, you do not want to test like that if you want, for PEW Science and the silencer sound standard, it was not smart. So I didn't. We could have done it, but we didn't. Okay, so here we are. So if you look at what actually happens at the muzzle of the weapon, you end up realizing you're going to have to look at both time regimes or you're going to break a gun. Forget about how many buffers you need to use in sound at the shooter's ear and all that stuff. I'm telling you, you gotta just let's get down to brass tacks, shall we? Let's stop beating around the bush. You got to look at both time regimes. You can't. We got too many silencers. We got too much stuff going on where we're gonna have to look at all this stuff, and this is a surprise tool that's going to help you later for other guns. Okay, so with PEW Science, the time's now. It's time to talk about this in the next phase of research. I think we've squeezed the lemon pretty hard, and I think going forward, not talking about this is only going to hurt. So we're going to introduce this next complexity. I hope you buckled up. A lot of you have been saying some stuff. The more I tell you, the more people spread information, and finally I'm like, okay, that's it. You gotta learn shock physics. Sorry. I tried to we're all gonna take compressible flow. It's what are you gonna do, right? At this point it's I don't know what to tell you. We're gonna have to learn it because we're getting to the point now where you're talking about stuff that you're gonna start. I mean, after the stuff I saw on social media this past week, I was like, okay, I gotta nip this in the bud because I got high level people talking about stuff, and I'm like, what? I'm like, homies, you can't be saying that stuff in public. You're gonna hurt somebody. So first thing I'm gonna talk about is the cherry bombs. I don't know. Now listen, and this is important for you to understand, and I've already seen people say it, which is super important for them to say. I think a lot of people had a good point. I don't know that cherry bombs are the only device that does this, dude. There's probably other stuff. What do I have on my desk right in front of me right now? And this is a coincidence. Do not make this political because I know someone's going to freak out because they love drama. I have a Thunder Beast. What is this? I don't even know what you call it. It's the one that goes in the Dominus that I bought to test the Dominus. This one actually doesn't have. That's interesting. It's a break. It's SR because it was the Dominus SR, right? So this is called the SR break. I'm looking in it. This is the half 28, right? This is the half 28 I bought. Because the guy I borrowed it from had shipped me a 5/8. Yeah, this must be the half 28 I bought. When I look at it, I look down that it's pretty open. Interesting. I wonder if that does it. I don't know. So I have that. What else I have? I have a Surefire SOCOM 762 RC2 3-prong in front of me here. Okay. I'm not sure how far the muzzle goes into that. I know this is index off of the shoulder, so I don't know if you get any expansion before that contraction. Not sure. And then what do I have? I have the Knight's Armament QDC mount, QDC 3-prong. That's just been on my desk forever because I literally bought this for testing the QDC silencers I bought, and I don't have any QDC silencers after I tested them for that gentleman and sent them back to him. So I just have this relic KAC mount on my desk because I think it looks cool and I paid for it, so why not keep it? And it's not a MAMS, it's MAMS. No, it's not a MAMS, it's a 3-prong, and it I don't know if that would do it. But what I'm doing is I'm looking at these muzzle devices and I'm talking about the cherry bomb, and you know what? I would have the cherry bomb in front of me, but you know what? I have some other cherry bombs, but I forgot to bring it. But you know where the cherry bomb is? I was using this weekend to experiment with this. You know where it is now. You know where it is. Guess where the cherry bomb is now. Guess where it is. It's stuck in the trash panda. I always am so careful if I'm going to test anything for a few shots with a cherry bomb and a trash panda thunder chicken. I always use a wrench to tighten the cherry bomb a little more than I would normally do. So this time I didn't tighten it enough, and sure enough, it got stuck in the silencer. And what happens when you get a cherry bomb stuck in a freaking silencer? You're screwed because you can't get it out unless you rock set it to your barrel or something. Unless you know a trick, dude. I'm really pissed because that trash pan is my test specimen, so that's a problem. So it was Easter, and I didn't want to get my blood pressure. I was like, whatever. And thankfully, thank goodness, I was already done with what I was doing. So I put it back, and I was like, oh, I'll take care of that later. So it's sitting in inventory with the cherry bomb still in it. Otherwise, I would have it to talk about as a prompt with you right here. I don't feel like going to grab another one out of the box. And so I have other ones. I have a bunch of those things, just for testing and stuff. And if you put one of those on a gun, if you put a cherry bomb on a gun and use a silencer with it, and then you use that silencer with that same silencer on that gun without the cherry bomb, so you would have a free orifice. Okay, that means no muzzle device. You feel me? Okay, you will not propagate shocks back into your barrel the same way. All that shock talk I talked about earlier, when the shock turns around and comes back, running through pre-compressed air at a higher speed. All that talk about that happens differently. Because the shock reflections don't happen until it impacts the inside of the silencer after it expands. It's different. That's what that means. Stop talking about this like it's water through a hose, dude. It's not. You're not shooting. It's not a garden hose. Okay? That's not how silencers work. You have shockwaves bouncing back and forth in your barrel, dude. Okay? I don't know what you can't not say that. All right? I literally told you about precursor flow and how it doesn't shock yet with subsonic ammo. Why did I take all that time to tell you that? It's because the molecules can communicate. They're not going to shock up because the sound speed's slow enough for them to communicate. That's the definition of sound speed. What does sound speed even mean? What does the speed of sound mean, guys? It means how fast can the molecules communicate with each other in the medium. That's what the speed of sound is. Okay? So what happens when you go faster than that? There's a discontinuity. There's a breakdown in communication. You get a shock front. Okay? All right? So when you put the cherry bomb on there, those shock waves want to come back at you. That is a undeniable fact. That's one. Now, you take it off, it does it differently. Depends on the silencer, what happens. Now, does that mean you're not propagating shocks back into your barrel? Absolutely not. It doesn't mean that at all, dude. I didn't say that. Okay? I said it will not propagate shocks back into your barrel the same way. Okay, and because of that, you're going to need to be really careful with what you do. You can break a gun like the Scar and not know why. And it happens all the time. I see it, dude. You're breaking stuff and you don't know why it's happening because you got people on the internet telling you stuff. I'm telling you, I saw a guy on social media comment, say something about gas this and gas that, comparing two silencers. And I'm like, dude, you don't even... No. And that's why I got so scared. I was like, no. I was like, wait a minute. Now these people... And the last thing I was going to do was get in an argument with them, because what are you going to do? Argue with someone that doesn't, like, that's not going to be productive at all. So I'm going to give a 2-hour discussion about it instead. Okay. No, they can listen to it and rebut it if they want. Now, half Nelson, full Nelson. More baffles than the trash pan and full Nelson Thunder Chicken. Okay, what does that mean? These Q silencers. This is a good case study here for you. 4 silencers. You got half Nelson, full Nelson. You got Trash Panda, Thunder Chicken. Why are those so important to this? It's really great, actually. It couldn't be a better test case. We need to thank Q for their contribution to the suppressed small arms state of practice for providing this case study to us. Because what does it mean that the full Nelson and half Nelson have more baffles than their cherry bomb cousins? Remember, the Nelsons don't have that. The Nelsons are direct thread. Different dynamics. What does it mean? What does it mean that the half Nelson and the full Nelson have more baffles? They have a lower overall flow rate. Higher back pressure overall. Dictated by the omega metric. But what about an early time? What about an early time? Trash Pan and Thunder Chicken use cherry bombs, don't they? That's right. SpaghettiOs. Guess what that does to the Scar? You don't have to guess. I'll tell you what it does to my Scar. It makes it so that I can open the venting all the way with the KNS discarder. That means all the way to 0, and the Trash Panda will lock that carrier back like it owes it money, dude. Yeah, dude. Oh, yeah. Like it owes it money, dude. Full Nelson and half Nelson? Nah, son. Those two silencers need a higher setting. They can close. You can close some venting and still get locked back with both of those. They don't reflect shocks in early time the same way as the cherry bomb silencers do. So they have a higher early time flow rate effectively. Isn't that crazy? You don't get that ridiculous blast load down the barrel. Look, another way, let me say this a different way. Instead of saying shock propagation rearward, say blast load down the barrel. If you're more comfortable speaking like that, it's the same thing. Okay? The shocks are multiple, and they're coming with a long duration part 2. I'm not just talking about one shock load. I'm talking about like a continuous blast load. It's a blast load characterized by a shock front followed by other things. So I'm feeding you so much information right now, your brain's gonna explode if I go too much. So you feel me? Okay, cool. So the full Nelson and half Nelson, bro, that's sort of like the Sig silencers in early time. Am I right? Look at the inside. Look at the inside. The Sig silencer we just talked about in the previous topic does 2 things, homie. You get the early time flow rate, right? And you don't compromise it because you've got no cherry bomb in there. That's important. And then what happens? Your later time flow rate ramps up because the annulus does work, son. That's right. Remember that? That's right. Recipe for what? What's that recipe for? The recipe for favorable operation on the Scar. That's right. I tested it, fam. I put that on the Scar. Put it on the gun, shot it. Needed way more closing of the vent knob to cycle. As advertised, Sig. As advertised. High flow rate, low back pressure. Just as the omega metric promised. But also the early time flow rate was super high. So we got lucky on that one. One of them things we got lucky on, yeah. Yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep going, dude. Let's talk about another silencer. Let's talk about the Hyperion. In early time, apparently you aren't getting severe shocks like a cherry bomb, right? Right? You seem to be sending gas to a place pretty quickly. So for a while, the flow rate is higher than normal. You're not getting these shocks in the same way. Your flow rate early time can vent quickly, but it takes a long time for the gas to get out of the Hyperion. So could a Hyperion gas you out on a semi-auto? Yeah, it totally could, dude. It totally could. Why is that? But Jay, I thought you said it had a high flow rate. Well, the overall flow rate is nonlinear, like I said before. So you get an early time shock propagation. You get flow doing something after that. And late time, you get a basic history out of the muzzle. We all know that. It's likely that the overall omega metric is a more reliable predictor of this overall so-called gassiness, really, depending on what the mechanism of the gassiness is, right? The overall flow rate of the silencer in late time, that in this case, especially with a super early time gas sensitive host weapon, maybe it's a better predictor of that than it is the early time weapon function. And really, that's no surprise given the discussion earlier, right? Shouldn't be a surprise. So now it should really be apparent to you. It should really be apparent to all of you why the rugged silencers follow the omega metric for everything. Again, we talked about this. It should be apparent why the rugged silencers follow the omega for everything. All the Sandman silencers, all that stuff. Because when you compare them to only each other, I'm repeating myself here. When you compare them to only each other, they will track with everything in their behavior in accordance with the omega metric. Why? Because only the late time stuff is changing, because that's what the omega metric is. The early time stuff is all the same, so it's effectively constant for those silencers. The blast chamber of the Surge and the Radiant, the Razor, the Micro 30, all the configurations, they're all the same. So that means that the shock propagation in early time is the same. That means that the only thing you're changing when you change the silencers is the late time stuff. And what governs weapon function when the early time stuff is all the same? What's your differentiator? The omega. Your late time, your holistic gas dump, because both matter. Okay, so weapon function is a function of both time regimes. I warned you. I said it in the articles. I said PEW Science I said PEW Science acknowledges the omega metrics is not the sole parameter one should concern themselves with for weapon function, or something like that. I said that in the very beginning. I warned you. I acknowledged it, but now we have to go down this rabbit hole. Because physics is not cool sometimes. No, it is cool. It's a lot. So now you see there's two time regimes. Okay, get another drink of water. 1 second. All right. When you have outliers from basic silencer design, when you add weird muzzle devices, you can't compare the holistic regime across the silencers. You can only compare omega. You can only compare late time, and unfortunately, and the Trash Panda shows a lower omega than some of these other silencers, guys. It does, and if late time gas is all that matters, you can use that. Okay, you can still use it, but if weapon function, particularly if your weapon is sensitive to early time stuff at the muzzle, you can't use the omega alone. You can't use it alone. It's not going to work. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize to you. The limitations of that parameter have been reached. And now with this discussion, you know why. This should help you greatly. Remember when all of you were asking me to put it in the rankings table? I was like, no. You're not ready for that. Imagine if I would have done that. Okay. No, that's going to be a no for me, dog. No, it's not going in the rankings table. It's not for that. It's a research parameter. I keep saying that. Yes, it's on the website. Knowledge is power, but don't get drunk with it. Don't get drunk with power. Okay? This should help you. You listening, you have a lot of experiments to do yourself to map this early time behavior, don't you? You're getting homework. Your fault, not mine. No, it is my fault. It is definitely my fault. I'm the architect of this, but I'm giving you homework. You can do a lot of things. You can get a measurement. You can get a lot of measurements. You could instrument the barrel or silencer with a transducer. That's hard. Okay. Don't go and start drilling holes in your gun unless you're super interested in doing that. What you can also do is see if you're going to lock back on an empty mag using different muzzle devices. Please do that too, dude. You can do it. Report back, fam. Okay, try it out. And what are you going to do? What are you going to see when that happens? Well, that's a combination of early time influence and late time. It's not omega. It's early time. Omega is holistic. Early time shocks are the bread and butter for some things. Both matter. Both matter. So what am I going to do? I wrote this down on a piece of graph paper. I wrote down on a piece of graph paper because I'm trying to help people here. I don't know if it's going to be a good or bad thing, but I'm writing it down. I'm going to post a picture. It's time to introduce another parameter. And I debated whether or not to do this, but in the interest of the research progression, the omega metric is open source. Everyone always clamors, oh, I want PEW Science to give open source. Okay, you ready? Let's do it. I'll give you another open source parameter for you to not validate because you don't want to. It's like, okay, let me give you more information. I'll give you more. I'm going to introduce another parameter. It's called the alpha parameter. Okay, the silencer's total function and total system influence to weapon and operator. It is a function of both alpha and omega. Many weapons will mostly depend on alpha. And gas toxicity will strongly depend on both alpha and omega. I have written down a doodle to guide you through this. I have taken a picture of it. I will post it as one of the images on the social media, Instagram, to accompany this podcast. You will see 4 conceptual examples in the doodle I have created, the doodle I have doodled. This is handwritten by me. This is 4 conceptual examples of varying alpha and omega for total simple system quantification. Omega being the external juice we have extracted from the lemon of the external waveforms. Alpha being the creamy center in early time that we have to go inside to get. Together, they define your entire behavior. Not talking about sound, okay? Relax. If you ever see a silencer from a manufacturer that claims to be zero back pressure or super high flow, and we test it on a bolt gun, and the gas comes out of the silencer super slowly, you can assume a couple of things. 1, either they're telling the truth about early time and lying about late time, or they're lying about everything. Okay. You feel me? You feel me now? This is a big statement I'm making right now, and I'm kind of tired of it. So we're gonna get aggressive. Okay, you feel me? Makes sense? To recap, this is not fluid flowing through a water hose. This is a compressible flow at supersonic velocity in a gun barrel, and it's feed into a silencer, and it's reflecting back through a pre-compressed gas column. It's going back at you really fast. It's bouncing back and forth in the barrel, dude. In the early time flow field, it's inducing reflected shocks. It can influence weapon function. As the field progresses over time, you can get a lot of gas stagnating, and the omega metric can help you with that part. Never assume early time is tied to omega. It can bite you. Hyperion users with the MCX, I'm looking in your direction. Okay. Clear as mud? Should be. No, don't get mad at Q. They made a silencer mount for bolt guns and a subsonic AR, dude. They didn't intend for you to do what you're doing with that cherry bomb. I promise. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're smart enough to know that. Nothing I have said should be surprising to any firearms engineer out there. And in fact, I bet you some of you are happy I'm finally talking about it because you're probably getting pissed at me. I didn't mention this earlier. I've actually received some feedback. I actually know some of you were getting mad at me because some of you told me. Okay? Some of you told me. And here we are. Don't be mad no mo. Okay? Don't be mad at Jay no mo. Okay? Now everyone knows everything. Okay? Do you think the public was ready for this first? Or did we have to go through this other stuff? Okay? Look, we can Monday morning quarterback all you want. But at the end of the day, look what we've created here. So at this point, I think it's pretty good where we've ended up. Okay, and let me talk through this I scanned this. I'd scan it. God, I'm old, dude. Sorry. I took a picture of it and I put it on my computer so I could talk through the graphics. So what I'm going to post for you, and look, guys, don't like think this is a textbook, okay? This is like literally just and I put the PEW Science logo on it so you know this is from me. This is real. I basically, what I'm doing is giving you a conceptual look at flow through a time, flow field through time, and how in a typical silencer design you can have this constant orifice behavior at the muzzle and vary your length of your silencer and your baffle orifice and all this stuff downstream and change your omega metric and keep alpha constant. And because omega and alpha are on the same timeline, you get holistic determination from just your omega metric, because if you took all of them and you compared them all and alpha was constant, you can just get rid of the constant. So the only variable is omega. But remember, alpha and omega are on the same timeline. In the beginning, there is alpha. At the end, there is omega. And alpha and omega must exist on the same timeline. You cannot hop timelines. Okay? Unless you have both parameters. You must be God to exist outside of time. And only having omega and alpha will let you do that. You can't do only have omega. You understand? You understand how this is all working out? So I put another graphic in there, and I call it Design B, where you shifted your alpha phase due to muzzle reflection. Call it a cherry bomb if you want, whatever. And you lengthen the entire time history, and maybe your omega stayed the same, but your entire time history is longer. Different behavior. Look at Design C. You shortened alpha because you did something in the front orifice, and your silencer had a high overall flow rate with omega. Your entire time regime is super short. What's that indicative of? Some kind of high flow rate, low reflection silencer like a Sig SLH or an OSS. What about Design D? What about Design D here in this graphic I'm picking, this picture, where you have this little bit shorter alpha phase than typical and a little bit longer omega phase than typical? What's that like? Well, that's kind of like a Hyperion, right? Fast early time. Still slow overall flow. And maybe your entire time regime is still lengthened. Why is that important? Because what you talk about, what you want to get cancer or not on a machine gun, you're going to put a Hyperion on there. You think the Hyperion is not going to gas you out? Yeah. Can it steal gas in early time? Stealing gas in early time is a crude way of saying dealing with early time shock propagation and early time flow. Okay? If your alpha phase is super short, that can benefit your weapon function. If your omega phase is long, you can still be quiet. That's what a Hyperion does. And what if you took Design D and you changed it to Hyperion K? What would happen? Your alpha would stay exactly the same and your omega shortens. Cool, right? And so there's some other stuff on this graphic I did too. I show you like omega minor, which is the reciprocal of the slope, and then I show you alpha minor, which this is just, and believe me, this is just a doodle. Don't take it as gospel. I basically make it the reciprocal of a reflection factor times another parameter that is yet to be discovered because we have to instrument it. And then I started to do. I was drawing some waveforms, and I basically says I actually wrote this. I was like, if alpha drops, omega still may not, which is true. For the least toxicity, you got to minimize both alpha and omega. I think that's one hypothesis I have. Okay, makes sense. I wrote it down. I know a lot of people are going to call me crazy for this, but this is right. I'm pretty sure. Like now you have the whole picture. So anyone wanting to contribute to the research and fill in the blanks like a Mad Lib can do it. Isn't that great? It's all open source. Come get it. Okay, cool, right? So yeah, no, but don't be crazy. I'm just telling you, like, it's important because we can do this. We can measure all this, and we will. We're gonna quantify it all. It just, You got to use high-speed cameras and all kinds of stuff, and that's cool. And now you see why people spend a lot of money on R&D, and you see why a lot of people spend a lot of money on patents, don't you? Yeah, dude. People defend what they work to build. You see? Go do it. If you're a company listening to this, find that holy grail of shock resistance in early time, high flow rate in late time, low flash, low length, high accuracy, low weight, high durability. What do you get? You get $1 billion if you solve all that. I don't know. Chase that dragon, baby. You know? Race is on. You got it all. You got it all now. Do it. You have all the info. You have all the information you need to make the best silencer in the world. Between the silencer sound standard and these research parameters, I've explained this to you. You have everything you need. Go forth and prosper, my son. Child, go west, my son, or whatever they say. I don't know what the freaking thing. I hope that helps, though. People get talking about, oh man, he's talking bad about the cherry bomb. No, I wasn't talking bad about the cherry bomb. I tell you what, dude, I was shooting that SCAR. I was like, I was mapping the K&S discarder setting with the full Nelson and the half Nelson because I was using the thread adapter, taper thread adapter. I was like, oh, that's interesting. You know, I was like, okay, full Nelson has a little more back pressure, whatever. And I was like, I wonder. And I put the cherry bomb on there, and I put the trash panda on there, and it's like, wham! And I was like, whoa, dude! And I was like, well, let me dial the gas down. Okay, trash panda, relax. Dialed the gas all the way to where I vented it all with the highest vent setting. And the trash panda was like, wham, wham, wham. I was like, okay, let's not break the SCAR today. Oh my goodness. Because I didn't have any gas screws with me. I was like, oh my goodness, this is trash panda right now. It's wild. I was like, well, it's a cherry bomb. That's so they're crazy. And then when I posted this and talked to people about it, I got some messages. People were like, duh. Of course we knew that was happened with the cherry bomb. And I was like, really? Because no one told me that it was like that extreme. And like then I saw people like on social media like saying, well, this is so easy. Like, of course, this happens with all muzzle devices or all brakes or blah, blah. And I was like, really? I was like, you understand the shock propagation that would be the similar? Are you sure? I was like, it might be. It's not water through the hose, though. So, really? Does it happen with every brake? I don't think so. It might. It might happen with some brakes. And then someone was like, oh, Reardon's the best because they don't. I'm like, this could very well happen with a Reardon device, dude. I don't know. I don't even have any Reardon muzzle devices. So how would I know that? I have to test it. Could be a geometric anomaly there. You know, you could need a certain, this has nothing to do with guns at the end of the day, right? There's like already established relationships for like orifice size and angles and like pressure, like propagation and stuff. This is not like some kind of science that's like crackpot crazy. This is established stuff that like people do for a living that don't even work on guns. Okay. In fact, some of them I know work in guns now, but I don't know. I know they studied it in school, but I don't know if they do it anymore. I know who they are. It's a small world, so we'll see who they are and where they went to school and who their professors were and what labs they worked in and yada yada yada. It's, everyone knows everybody type of thing. Blah blah blah. So that's what my colleagues tell me, and a lot of this, and so it's is what it is. I don't want there to be any bad blood here about, I'm not talking about any single muzzle device. I'm just telling you, I had these three on my desk. I'm like, I wonder if they, I look at this Thunder Beast one. I'm like, I don't think it's just Thunder Beast does it. I start to wonder on the Mark 18, that back pressure we noticed. I wonder if it was because of just its omega. Maybe it's just late time. I don't know. Thunder Beast has a pretty traditional baffle geometry. So I don't, those shock reflections are a little different. And they have this multi-port brake, right? I mean, are you getting some weird shock propagation back down? And it's 556. Oh, that reminds me, 14.5. So, dude, I tested just to as a double check. I wanted to check out that 14.5, right? So I put the Hyperion thread adapter on there. And before I forget, before I move on to that, remember I told you I was going to test a bunch of silencers because I would just put that bushing on there, the Sig bush or the Sig and Q bushing that like makes it so that you can put 90-degree shoulder into a taper. I was so excited because I was going to bring more silencers than just like the cherry, because cherry bomb can go on a taper too, which is cool about it. That's one thing that's really great about a cherry bomb, because it can go on a tapered barrel and not a 90-degree shoulder, not just a 90-degree shoulder. That's really cool about a cherry bomb. So I could use the cherry bombs. I could use the full Nelson and half Nelson. I could use the whatchamacallits, Hyperion K. I could use the Sig silencers, even the 762 the SLH 762 that you haven't seen. I could use that, but I couldn't use the bushing to use 90-degree muzzle devices, or because the CGS tapered thread adapters that I have are too shallow, and it would be not engaging the taper. Anyway, suffice to say, that's why I didn't use all the other silencers. So if you have that question, because you're going to see a picture I post, the main picture is going to be the 14.5-inch gun with a bunch of silencers on the ground. You're going to be like, how come all of those fit tapered barrels? Why didn't you test anything else? Why didn't you use the bushing? And I'm telling you that right now. Okay, so there's that. So I saw this 14.5, dude. I wrote down I just like gas ejection pattern, because it's a simple AR and you can do that kind of sometimes. And like I noticed, like, dude, like the Hyperion was like ejecting at like 3 o'clock and like 3:30, and like other silencers were ejecting it more forward, and I was like, freaking Hyperion, dude. It's alpha. Alpha's all wild. You know, is that crazy? I thought that was super crazy, dude. I'm not going to put that alpha thing on the website yet, because I'm going to update an article, probably formalize it a little bit, but I don't think that without measured data, I don't think it's worth publishing that. But I will, and it'll come from PEW Science, obviously. It's my perimeter, but we can talk about it as we want. And I hope this gives you, let me make sure, did I cover everything I was supposed to cover in that topic? Where's my list? Yeah, I think I did, and I think it helps. Please use it responsibly, this information. If you have a question about it, please, I implore you, tech@pewscience.com. Email me. Pro members, pro@pewscience.com. Advanced members, you have my personal email address. Email me. Who else? I don't know. Email me, dude. If you have a question about this, do not break your guns or start talking bad about companies. Just, unless you, you can do whatever you want. Actually, I don't care. But don't assume that it's just let me say this a different way. Don't assume it's just the cherry bomb. Okay. Because it's likely not. Okay. Hope that helps. Topic 3, a time of 1 hour, 52 minutes. And 34 seconds. Yep, I knew this was going to be a 2-hour podcast. Hope you had a great Easter weekend, though. I did. Didn't eat as much chocolate this year as I thought. I barely ate any. In fact, I don't know that I ate any chocolate this weekend. But field research is important. I did some, as we just talked about, and it had nothing to do with sound, but it sure did help the state of practice, didn't it? Those little outings when you're armed with a good info. It's important for you, to pass the torch to those learning from you and make sure they can teach others. That's one of my philosophies in life and with PEW Science. And, to dovetail into what we just, spoke about, man, you can do independent study on the stuff I just talked about at home. You can change your muzzle devices, change silencers, see how weapon function maps with your silencers and weapons to the Omega correlation on the website, and see how the early time phenomenon might be doing stuff that's not captured in Omega. Okay? Maybe come up with a perimeter yourself. What, you don't like alpha? You want to look at a formulation of alpha that's a little bit funky? Let's talk about it. Why not? Do the work. Experiment. Play. Use the data. This is PEW Science, okay? It's cool. This is how this stuff was born. I did this for you. I did it for all of you in a controlled fashion. I did it for myself. I wanted it for myself. I wanted the data. I wanted to know how the silencers worked. I wanted to find the quietest stuff. No one did it for me. No one did this for me, so I did it myself. And now all of you are helping me, and you're helping yourself. Okay, we're doing it together. So help everybody. Help your friend. Help your neighbor. The guy who asks you for help that you don't know with something, help them, build a community of like-minded individuals interested in furthering the state of practice. PEW Science has built a community to further the state of practice of suppressed small arms, and you can do it too. You can do it with us. And you have together with us, if you're a member of PEW Science and contribute to this effort, you are part of this. And we wouldn't be making these discoveries in the organized way, in the reported way we are without all of you, okay? So please, continue to ask questions. I love to be able to talk to you about this because I was telling everybody that muzzle devices made a difference, but I until I had the SCAR research apparatus, I didn't know the degree to which it would be this contrast would be so stark. I couldn't believe how different it was. And to be clear, and this is something I should have said in topic 2, I hope people that only listen to topic 2 get this. Hopefully they'll listen to this part. But and I told this to somebody, this is physics. Part of the thing that happens with a wave reflection is that the higher the pressure, actually the reflections that come off of it can increase proportionally in amplitude, defined by a couple parameters. And because of that, on an SBR, those shock reflections could be even more intense for a certain reason. Now, the holistic effects, I'm not saying they're necessarily worse, but I'm telling you the physics can be different because of that. So that's another thing. So and the reason I bring that up right now after the fact is because the SCAR is a 13-inch barrel 308, which is wild. Okay, so that's another reason why maybe I'm noticing some of that really, really big difference. But again, it has low dwell time, so the later time effects aren't as wild. The omega. So God, it's isn't it great to have both alpha and omega in the vernacular? For me personally, I'm relieved to have that vernacular as a tool. Okay, very good. Now remember, this is let me just recap really quick. Just parting thoughts. You can't triple stamp a double stamp. Just because you have high early time flow rate and you aren't doing crazy shock propagation doesn't mean you won't get gassed out in late time. You're not going to run your Hyperion on a machine gun with no gas in the face. Okay, there are 2 components to flow: early time and holistic gas dump. And for a true scenario in which weapons don't care, and the shooter doesn't either, you're gonna need both. Okay. Cue the Skeletor meme where he runs away. Until next time. No. Until next time, friends. I will talk to you folks again soon. All right, bye.